I'm on live right now as a test. I've never done a live before. Um, I am Rupal Patel. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I am going to be making a modified version of a veggie biryani that the famous UK blogger Sanjana's Feasts has done. But instead of it being a complete veggie biryani, I've changed it up to what we like as a family and made it a chole biryani. And also used a few different ingredients as well. That's it. This is one of our favorite recipes. I've made it a few times. It's a family favorite. I have a ton of family from the Valley in Texas, South Padre Island, and I've made it a few times, and it is a big crowd pleaser. The other good thing about this recipe is that it is really easy, and if you have, like leftover chole sak or leftover chuta rice, you could really quickly put it together just with a few other ingredients and make your leftovers into something fancy like biryani. And that's really how this came about for us, or for me, is that I just had a few things and I looked up her recipe and just decided to throw in everything else, and then it turned out really great. And then the next time I made it, I actually made it as this particular dish. So that's how I came up with this on my own. I will also be posting the recipe on the steps. It's pretty self-explanatory. I did make the rice the day before, and it is just leftover rice. And let me flip the camera over so you can see it. It's just rice. I also did the chole. You can use canned chole. I generally don't like using the can because I feel like the home version just tastes better. It's not that intimidating to use the Instapot. If you do have regular chole, you could put it in your Instapot, wash it a few times, put it in there for about 52 minutes and on high, and it'll cook right away, and it's super soft. I actually did this yesterday, and it's really, like, it's very, very soft. So it's not really intimidating to make your own chole. For us, I meal plan quite a bit just because of the pandemic, and I'm sure everyone else does. So this is about 2.5 cups of dry chole, and I put it in Instapot. I follow the directions according to the book, in terms of a proportion of beans and water. It's really simple. If you still have your Instapot book, just really follow that. I put a couple of bay leaves in it, put some salt, and a couple of cloves of garlic, and it seasons them really well. Even if you want to eat them by yourself, throw them in a salad. I use it for shak and something like this, like the biryani. And I also just use it for hummus because my husband and I do really enjoy hummus. We like charcuterie boards, and we add hummus to that. It's a nice, healthy alternative just to snack with carrots or chips or just anything just to have in general. So that's it, really. Another fun fact about me is that I have 2 children. I'm married. I've lived in San Antonio for 12 years. I just celebrated my 40th birthday. I was supposed to do this cooking live on my birthday, but my kids ended up having to stay home for school this week because, as we know, the COVID cases everywhere have kind of just got out of hand, and they had a lot of staff members at both schools just really down with COVID or exposed. So I figured it might be a little hectic to do the virtual school and the virtual live together. So I had to kind of change it up, and that's why there was a bit of a date change, but that's something that we're all going through right now. And I'm actually really glad to be trying to do this and seeing where it can go. I think we're a little early, but we could start just because this is a lengthy recipe. There's a lot of steps, but it's really not intimidating. It seems like it could be. I know whenever people say biryani, it does, you feel like it could take forever, but honestly, it's not that bad. And I feel like if you have some of the things ready already, or if you already have some of them done, it's really not that bad. And there's a lot of shortcuts that I do use, and I like sharing my shortcuts, so I'm going to be doing that. I'm in selfie mode right now. I'm going to face the camera towards my pot here so that you guys can see. And this is just a regular like Dutch oven. You don't have to use this. I just took it out today because it's got a really nice color to it. It pops in my kitchen so you guys could see everything. But normally I just use, you know, like the Circulon pan or a Calphalon pan, a nonstick. That's easier. But because I'm using this, I do have it on lower heat. And I guess we can just start. The first thing that you'll need are all your ingredients. So what I've done is I've rough pureed one whole tomato on the vine, just one tomato, and half of a red onion. You could use whatever onion you like. I like using red onion because it tends not to make my gravies as sweet. I know white onions can, and usually yellow onions are pretty mild, but I like using a red onion just because we don't like our gravies too sweet, and if you do sometimes need to add extra onion, if you rough puree a red onion, it won't make the gravy sweet. First, you can start with the normal way you make gravy. You can either use canola oil, corn oil, whatever you feel comfortable, and about 2 tablespoons of that. And because I'm using this type of pan, I do have it on a slightly lower heat. To that, I'm going to add a bay leaf, a dried bay leaf, 1 dried red chili, and a very short stick of cinnamon, because we're not big fans of the big like earthy flavor. We just like it to be a somewhat light flavor. So when I do these types of gravies, I don't add too much of that. And then I'm gonna turn the camera over, 1 badiou. I don't add any lavang just because we don't really like using that too much. It just makes everything so strong. And what you're gonna do, I'm gonna just increase the heat a little bit, is just let it sizzle until like the bay leaf is pretty brown, and then you can kind of smell everything. And I actually remove these whenever they're kind of toasted, just because I feel like it's better if you remove them for us, just because the stuff won't get in the way like when you're eating. And you know, when you eat, you have to like pull it out of your mouth or pull it out of your plate. And with a dish like biryani, it's kind of difficult. There's already a lot going on in there, so you don't want to have to take something else out. So I kind of just let them sizzle for a little bit, as you can see, and I'll turn the camera over again. I can actually smell everything. It's turned pretty brown, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it, and then I'm just going to directly add my I'm going to remove these. Where's my, there it is. I'm going to remove this and just kind of put it on my spoon rest, because everything is nice and toasted. And then I'm going to just go ahead and add these rough chopped tomatoes and onions. Just give it a good stir. To this, I'm going to add some urad, and just, you know, like the normal amount that we do, just to kind of tint it. You don't have to do this, but it just makes it taste better and look better. Depending on your spice level, you can add a chamchi of regular lal mirchu. You don't have to do this if you have children eating, totally understandable, or if you you know, can't handle the heat, that's totally fine. Sorry, I forgot to refill my salt, but some salt, just how we generally make a gravy. And I have all of the exact measurements in the recipe, so you can always just go and kind of see that. But generally, this is just how we would do a regular gravy. I'm going to let this sit and cook for a little while, just for a little bit, and close it. And while I do that, I'm going to measure out my chole turna and get out my ginger and garlic real quick. So we can close that. And then let me grab my masalas. So I have my vatela masalas. I'm out of mirchu, but for this recipe, I generally don't use any green mirchu just because with all of the other spices getting combined, it just makes it so spicy that you don't really want to do that per se. So I don't do that. Actually, I don't add too much green chili to this recipe at all. It's usually just dry or it's red. So it's been cooking for a couple minutes now. And we're gonna look at it, and it's generally just it's just, you know, normal cooking low, and that's it. I'm going to add my lucerne and ginger. Now you can add this according to your own taste. We kind of evenly balance both, but we do like things a little more garlicky than gingery, so I'm going to put it according to how we eat it, but generally, I mean, you can adjust it as you like to, and of course if you wanted to make this Jane, you could. You just don't add any onions or garlic, and it's actually really good that way as well. Now, if you have any Kashmiri mirchu, you can add this for color, and it makes it really nice and bright and red pretty. It doesn't add any heat to the mixture, so I added quite a bit just because I like it red, and I think it just makes it look so pretty. So here's this. Now I'm going to add 1 cup of the cooked garbanzo beans that I have. Maybe I might add just a little bit more, just a little bit more, and I'm going to give it a stir. And this mixture is looking a little dry. In the recipe, I also have, I've also called for some vegetable broth. And I know, like when, you know, we make the non-veg dishes, you can add chicken broth or, you know, whichever corresponding broth. So generally, when I make a veggie dish, I always add a good low-sodium vegetable broth. It just tends to make things taste a little better instead of adding plain water. And adds a little flavor. If you get the low sodium, then you don't really have to worry too much about the salt, especially if you've already like ground your ginger and lucerne. Sometimes you add salt to it so that it stays a little, so it, you know, it stays fresher longer. I added 1/2 cup of broth, but looking at it now, I feel like it needs a little bit more. So I'm just going to add another 1/2 cup, and I'm going to let that cook. And then also, I will add a little bit of coriander to this. And then, I don't know about y'all, but my husband's a little picky about when he eats, and he doesn't like me feeding him anything until I taste it. So this is the point where I would taste it and see if it needs any salt or anything else in terms of like lucerne or adu or anything like that. And I mean, if you don't like tasting, or, you know, sometimes people do taste their food, sometimes they don't, generally because I live with this person that has to have the food tasted first. I generally do. So this would be the point where I would taste it, and then add what I need and close it up and let it cook for a couple minutes. And yeah, I know, I mean, it seems like it's fine. So I'm gonna let this cook. To this, after a couple minutes, you can add half a cup of chopped spinach. I had fresh spinach, so I'm gonna add this. If you don't have fresh spinach and you want to use, any frozen spinach, that's great. Just make sure you add, just half a cup and squeeze all the water out. If you don't want to squeeze the water out and you don't have any vegetable broth, you could actually just cut that little part of the block off, save it and put it in a bowl, and then actually just put that whole frozen bit with the defrosted spinach water into your gravy with the chole charna, and that actually makes it really flavorful as well. I already have a cooked batch of this, so I'm going to show y'all right before I put this spinach in. That way it kind of saves time, and you kind of understand, like, it's not that intimidating to make a biryani if you have a few things done already. Lucky for me, I already did the rice, and I'd already had my garbanzo beans boiled. You could use the shortcut, get some canned ones, pop them in the microwave for about 7 or 8 minutes so that it kind of gets that canned flavor out, and it's actually like a softer bean. It's not so like gardak whenever you eat it. It will almost be soft as butter whenever you do when you do bite into it. This is pretty bubbly, so I'm going to go ahead and just add my spinach, and I'm going to turn it off, and I'm just going to set it aside. And I'll give it a little stir. The thing you want to remember about biryani is that even if you're making, like a meaty one or, even a veggie one, you don't want it to be completely runny in terms of like your filling or your shak. Just because if it's too runny when you're assembling it, it's just all gonna fall apart. And then you're just gonna have like this big, like, pan or, a pan of, rice and all this layered stuff, and it's just gonna kind of move. You don't want it to completely be that runny. At the same time, you don't want it to be completely dry either. But in this situation, since you're layering a few, different things together, and if you've already, since your rice is 80% cooked, or chuta rice, or maybe some leftover rice and it's already a little dry, it's okay if this mixture is a little dry and you need to add some broth or a little bit of water and play it by ear and adjust your masalas, just because it's a little better to have it a little dry than it is too runny, just because then if it's too runny, then you might have to use a slotted spoon when you're layering it, and you don't really want to do that because you would take away from your masala, and you don't really want to do that in a biryani because you already have one layer of rice that's completely spice-free, which it's bland. So whatever flavor that you do infuse, it kind of needs to be in here, and it needs to stay like that in here as well. The other thing I also forgot is I need to add some of this, so I'm going to go ahead and add this. This is a really good tandoori masala. I know you can use karsangela, that's great too, but I find that this Raja one, it's just so nice and mild that even my children like eating it, and there's no salt in it. I know with karsangela, like, you have to worry about some salt issues, or you have to kind of just figure out, not to add too much, and if you can't add enough masala, sometimes you need to add garam masala, and sometimes that just irritates people's stomachs. But I found that this one is super mild, and it's just got a very good flavor just for anything. And I add about a teaspoon of that in here. And I added it a little late, I'm sorry, I kind of got nervous and I forgot about it. But the good thing is that this is still bubbling, so it's not too late to just have it stirred in. And we're going to get a couple of other things ready for that, and I'll show you the mixture that I've already made, and by that time, like, this will already have incorporated really well. And you have to remember, you're also going to put it in the oven, so it's not like everything has to be 100% cooked. It should be about 80% cooked, and this is already, because the chole charna they are already cooked. The gravy's cooked as well, and it's got a nice, like, rustic texture to it, which is, I feel, really important when you're making a biryani, because you want to be able to, like, taste the pieces that you're eating. It shouldn't be, it's not like a paneer tikka masala where everything is like nice and smooth. You do want to be able to feel every texture of the dish, and just get every flavor that's soaked in. So this is this mixture here. I'm going to close it and put it to the side, and kind of show y'all what's next. According to my recipe, this recipe and the measurements of the chola churna and the rice will fit this size Pyrex dish, and it's just a general Pyrex dish. It is 8 by 6 by 2, so it's just the middle one. It's not the thin one, and it's not the gigantic one. I have made the bigger version of this, and you would just double this recipe, and then that's all you really have to do. So for this, I already have a few things ready. I'm going to move my camera over a little bit so that you guys can see how I assemble this. I've already made I've already pre-made some or the filling, this other chola filling is exactly the same. And as you can see, they look pretty similar, to this one as well. It's pretty much the same one. And I'm just going to show you how we layer that. But first, there's another step that I do with this, and it is making the saffron milk. You take just a general way that we all melt geser and water. You add a few strands or a couple of strands of saffron, just soak it in water. And I did this about an hour beforehand, and then I added a little bit of warm milk, and altogether this is about 3 tablespoons. And you're gonna need this at the end after you're finished layering all of your biryani. One more thing that you'll need is some dried rose petals. If you don't have it, it's okay. You can get a really good brand from Amazon. They're about 10 bucks, I think, for the packet. And this is not the only thing that you could use the rose petals in. You could use it for mitai. I actually use rose petals to make ice cubes, and when I want to have some Topo Chico with a nice, fancy ice cube, I actually just pop out one of those with the rose, and I feel like I'm drinking like a sparkling rose mocktail, and it's really nice. It's super refreshing, especially in the summer. So I've had these in, I've had one packet for about 6 months now, and I got them at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm just about running out now, but I've pretty much used them for everything. I've made a lot of those mitais. I've made some cookies, like some Indian cookies with the rose petals in it. It's just, they just add that extra kick to this biryani. And I mean, you think like, when you say rose petals, like, oh, okay. But no, it actually balances the flavors really well with this, and you don't actually feel like you're eating a very heavy garam masala type spicy type dish whenever you do eat the biryani. The other thing that I also have noticed with this is that in general, this biryani is pretty clean. Like, you're not going to see chunks of cashews or chunks of other stuff that you would at an Indian restaurant. It's kind of like combining the best things that we eat normally into like an Indian rice dish, casserole, whatnot. So there's that. I do also layer my rice layer with my own biryani masala, and I do have the recipe for that attached with this one. But if you have a regular biryani recipe or biryani masala that you like shan or whatever, that's fine too. This is just literally to sprinkle on the rice, and this is one of the main differences that my recipe has compared to Sanjana's, the food blogger. She actually puts this entire, this amount of masala into her veggie mixture, and I don't do that just because I've tried it before and it was very strong for my family, and that's whenever I kind of modified the amounts as well, according from hers to ours. So I put my modified version in my recipe for today, just in case you like that milder flavor. Hers is on her blog, so you can always like just do that, check that out if you'd like. But this is my version. There's no sugar in it. Her version does have some sugar in it. There's no ajma in mine either, just because we like ajma, but just not in biryani. And hers has ajma in it as well. Mine has less cloves in it. It's just it's milder, and it's for us it works better just cutting some of the ratios in half. And if you compare the two, you can see that a lot of the things in mine are cut in half, just so that even if my kids want to eat it, they can. It's not as spicy, and it's not as earthy or strong either. The good thing about making your own biryani masala as well at home is that it's not too hard. And if there are some things that you are allergic to or have a intolerance to, like cinnamon or like cloves or whatnot, then instead of in the ready-made masala, you can't really take that out. But if you make your own, you can, and you can save it, and it lasts for 6 months. And it's actually, it's pretty good to just kind of have your own mixture that kind of works for your own family, instead of I guess using the main one. But if you like that one, those are great too. They're great shortcuts. But since we had so much time during the pandemic earlier this year, I made my own. So I took about a teaspoon out of that. You might not even need that much, just depending on how much you sprinkle. But this is about all I use for this. The other thing I have measured out is some fried onion, and I use the French's fried onions. This is a traditional thing to use in biryani. I know sometimes you could fry your own onions. I've done that before. It's super tedious. I just like these better. I know you can get some at the Indian store. They're not salty. And I feel like with the rice being so bland, instead of adding just a fried onion that's just without any savory in it, it just makes the whole thing a little sweeter. So I like using these French's onions. If you're local to San Antonio, you could get the H-E-B ones. They're exactly the same. I think I just found these during Christmas, so I grabbed them. So I measured out half a cup of this. I also use this to layer as well. And there is a surprise ingredient, but I will introduce that in a minute. I will show how I layer this and move the camera over so that you can see that. Sorry guys, I'm trying to adjust everything and having a bit of trouble seeing what's what. I'm actually just going to move everything so that you guys can see it better. I think this will work better. Okay, so here's our dish. Here's our rice. Here's the shack that's already prepared. The fried onion, the biryani masala, the saffron milk, and the rose petals. And I'm going to get a couple of measuring cups. Just so that we have the proportion of rice and the shack, just so that you can kind of see how I do it. You don't have to do it this way. For me, I just like to know how much I'm putting in so that it's not too dry or too liquidy, and it's just easier that way. I forgot to grab the cooking spray, so I'm going to do that just because this is going to go in the oven. And if you want to use oil, you can always just baste it with oil. For me, I just use a good canola spray. So I'm going to start by spraying this. I sprayed it. And I'm going to rinse my cup just because. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start with the rice, and I'm going to fill the cup with rice. So, like so. And then I'm just going to spread it. And then just kind of take a spoon and just pat it down flat. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I mean the flatter the better, just because you'll be able to taste all of these layers. And there's that. And then I'm gonna take my biryani masala, and I'm just gonna take a couple, like a pinch or so, and I'm just gonna drizzle it or sprinkle it on top of this rice layer, just to give it a little bit of flavor. It doesn't seem like much, but it actually does add quite a bit of flavor to it once you're finishing layering everything after it's been in the oven. It does make a difference. It's just a very small thing, but it makes a huge difference. I have a 2/3 measuring cup here, and I'm gonna use this much to layer the chola mixture. And in the recipe, I say almost a cup, just because sometimes you don't want, like I said earlier, you don't want your biryani to fall apart whenever you're serving it. It's fine. Just, you know, if you're using a springform pan, which you can, then you don't really have to worry too much. But if you're using one of these, and not everyone has a springform pan unless you make cheesecake or whatever at home, and I know like these are more versatile, these Pyrex containers. So I just find that if it's a little rustic and a little less runny, it'll hold your biryani together. And at the end, you always have the saffron milk that we're going to use to make sure that the entire dish stays moist. So that's the purpose of that, and it also infuses a lot of great flavors in it too. So here's that. We're going to add a little bit of the fried onion. I like doing this. You don't have to do it on this layer, but we kind of like that extra crunch and the baked, like how it tastes after it's been baked. So I add the fried onion to every layer. You don't have to. You can add it to the top as a garnish, but we like how it tastes, so that's what I do. And again, same thing. Just repeat the layering all over again. And you spread it out. Add more. Now, you only have a little bit of this left, so you can just, you know, top it off if you like, or, you know, if your kids like it, want to eat it separately, they can. I'm just going to go ahead and use it, and then since my last layer is going to be rice, I will just add a little more rice to just even it out and keep it simple. And just finish it all off. Generally, when you make a biryani, you want to end your layer with rice, just so that with the garnishings and all that, it just dries out better. And it's just neater whenever you also like take it out after it's baked. I'm just going to add the rest of my rice as well, and it ended up being right at an exact 2 cups. So, and then I'm going to just spread it out so that it kind of just evenly goes all the way across the pan, or the dish, sorry. And same thing again. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of this biryani masala across it. Now, something different, I'm going to add a little rose petal to this. Very little, you don't have to add a lot. If you don't have any, you definitely don't need to do this. It just tastes really good. And I'm actually, since these are dried, I'm actually crumbling what's in my hand on here. So, you know, if you're hesitant about the flavor, you can just definitely do that. Just crumble a little bit and add it. It does make a really nice, different like layer of flavor, and it balances everything really well. So don't be hesitant to try something new in terms of flavoring. Next is going to be that saffron milk water combination that we did. This will also infuse another layer of flavor, and it will add moisture to your biryani. And it'll kind of also give a little bit of the creaminess that you need. And also, like I said earlier, add some extra flavor to that. You can use all of this. You don't have to. I'm just going to go ahead and pour it in, just because I know that my chola mixture, it wasn't runny and it wasn't dry, but just in case I want my biryani to stay moist, I just added all of that to it. Now, you can top with the rest of your fried onion. And you could now finish this off, bake it at 350 to 375 for 30 minutes, or you could add a bonus layer of phyllo. I actually don't use phyllo. I use this, I'm gonna turn the camera over. I use kataifi. And it is, I'm sorry, kataifi is, it is a shredded phyllo dough. If you're in San Antonio, you can find this at Alibaba. You find it right in that area where you have their Arabic cheeses, the halloumi. Also, you can find, it's right where the baklava phyllo dough is. But this is, I'm gonna turn this around and show you what it is. It's, as you can see in the picture, like you can just kind of use it as like a phyllo cup. But what it is that it's shredded, and it just adds like a really cool texture to the whole dish. And it's just something that I randomly just was at Alibaba, and I decided to just get some halloumi, and I found this there, and I decided, let me try this and see. And it's a big hit. Like, we really like it. We've used it for wrapping cheeses and like cheddar peppers and all that too. So I'm going to unwrap this, and show y'all what this is. Let me get right in my So you just unwrap this, and if you have some kitchen shears, these work great. I have my kitchen shears here, or if you have those scissors that you can use to cut green onions, that works really well too. This is just like a nest of phyllo dough. It's not cooked, so if you do get this and you're going to make this dish, just like with any other puff pastry, you want it in the fridge 24 hours before you use it, and it's just easier to work with in that way. So all you do with this is that you cut it. I cut it, it's easier. And it's kind of looks like souterfeni, but it's not sweet. It's just phyllo, shredded phyllo. But it adds a really cool texture, and it just makes this dish a little extra fun. And it also, again, balances out any, if you feel like, biryani is overwhelming in flavor, this will totally balance it out completely. And I mean, if you find this type of phyllo dough messy, you can always just use the baklava sheets. I personally don't mind using baklava sheets, but I feel like for me, no matter how tender my hands are, I always end up ripping them, and then I can never scrunch them and curl them properly into those rose petal type sheets. So for me, this was like a really great discovery. It's a little messy, but I just for showing purposes, I usually just cut this in a bowl, and you season this. It doesn't have any salt in it. It's just like regular phyllo dough. It's just a little buttery. It's not too buttery. Let's see. I might have to cut a little more, but we'll see. So what I do is I put the kataifi, I cut it in a bowl. Let me just put a little more on. And if you live in a city that has a Middle Eastern or Arabic or Persian grocery store, you will definitely be able to find this. If you can find halloumi in that store, which is their Arabic cheese, you can definitely find this kataifi where you would find any baklava ingredients in the freezer section. So as you can see, I just kind of trimmed this in small pieces, and it just kind of looks like phyllo hair, or even I guess like that gaiti seo that you boil, but it's obviously not. So on this, I drizzle a little bit of oil, just a little bit, only enough oil, just a little bit, to season it with salt. And I'm just going to add a couple sprinkles of salt because it's not seasoned, so you don't want it to be completely bland either, because every other layer of this biryani is seasoned and flavored, so you want to make sure that your garnish is the same way. I didn't add any cilantro or mint because my children won't eat it if they see something green, but definitely in between all of those layers you can. I just didn't because, like I said, if they see something green, it's like the enemy, so we don't eat it. With this, if you wanted to add a little bit of urad, and if you wanted to add jiru, like ground jiru, you can. I haven't this time. I have before. It tastes great. I didn't want to add the urad just because it's hard to tell once you've put it in the oven if the kataifi is actually cooked or not. So I didn't add any urad. But if you definitely want to add, a little more urad during this wintry season, you can, just to make everything a little more healthier. It's totally fine. But this is good as is, the way that it is. And you can use this now to top your biryani. And you just kind of cover it. Kind of like cheese, but it's phyllo dough. Sorry, I'm sure you can't see it well, but now depending on your oven temps, generally you can do 350 for about 45 minutes, or until you see that this is like a nice brown red color. You want to make sure that this is pretty evenly distributed so that it does get toasted and cooked well. I do have one prepared already, but before that I'm going to share how you can eat this. You can eat this with your favorite raitu. We like eating it with chas, and so for that it's a little different than the chas that I normally make, but it's just and I also have that attached to the recipe. I add a tablespoon or two of chopped cilantro, teaspoon of limeri leaves, some salt, some sugar, very little sugar, and some black pepper and cumin, and one small gardi of lasan, and then I just kind of blast it in the blender, and it makes about this much. I mix 3/4 yogurt a measurement to 1/4 of sour cream. My husband likes his chas with sour cream, so I put that. If I don't have that, or if I feel like I want to use yogurt drink, this is a really good option. So with the green stuff that I do have, that I did mention earlier, I'll just put that in the chutney machine and I'll completely add it just to this. And this is really good. I just didn't have enough of it today, so I wanted to save it for curry and bagale rotli or whatever tomorrow. So I just made my own yogurt and sour cream mixture. So now this is ready to be baked, but I do have one that's already ready that I want to share, and I'll share it with you. And this is the version that is ready. You can see the kataifi is done. I actually had my son help me top this, so he was really excited about like he calls it spider hair, the kataifi. So some of it, it's still cooked and toasted. It's not as red as I would like it to have been, but as long as you keep the layer pretty thin and you do cook it all the way through for about 35 to 40 minutes, give or take, just kind of look at it. I would set the timer for about 32 minutes and then look at it and just see if, you know, it's all like red, but generally like you want it this color. Let's see. You want it to look like this red right here. And that's actually like the perfect toasted. It might look like it's too red, but it's actually really good. It makes it a very good and very neat crunch. And that it just works out better that way if it's all this color. But ours was a little enthusiastically topped today, so it's a little too big. Or it was too much layering. I'm going to take a piece of it out so that you can kind of see what it would look like if you were to eat it. So right here you can see it's not runny, and you can kind of move it around, right? So you can serve it pretty easily, almost like a piece of casserole, and just eat it. And then it falls apart really well. You can see all the textures and the layers, and there's the onion, there's the chole, you can see the fried onion, you can even see some rose petal here, and it just sits really well. It won't fall apart. It's not too runny, and then you can just top it off with some chas or raitu, or you could even eat it plain like this. It's actually really good by itself too, dry. And that's it really. It's it is not a very intimidating dish. It's actually not that bad if you have some of the things already prepared, and it just works out to be a really fun thing to eat, a fun thing to make, and something different. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We really love this dish a lot. We've eaten it in the summer. We've had it a couple times in the winter, and it's a really good crowd pleaser as well. If you want to make the bigger pan, like the one size bigger of the Pyrex dish, you just double the recipe, and I will be posting that recipe after this live is over. And hopefully you guys try this. It's easy, it's great. The only thing you'd actually need to probably get is the kataifi. If you wanted to add it, you don't have to. You would have to get the dried rose petal if you wanted to. I do recommend this for the other uses that you can use with it too. And then you would have to get the fried onions. But I mean, if you use fried onions with other cooking, or if you eat salads or whatnot, you might have the fried onions anyways. I know we do from Thanksgiving and Christmas because we eat a lot of green bean casserole. So fried onions are something that we generally have a lot of in my pantry anyways. So not too many things you'd have to buy, but definitely something that you can make that's super easy and really good. And hopefully you all enjoyed this today. I had fun doing this, and hope you guys have a great rest of the long weekend and you guys enjoy it. Thank you. Bye.